Whether you agree or disagree, or it just simply goes over your head, you can still quote me, because that's what I said.
And hello, everybody. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Native Talks. Now, if you did not hear it from these two lips, then you've been lied to and you've been tricked. Because before you can repeat it or even start to debate it, y'all just better make sure that you heard me say it. All right, y'all. Well, we are upon a landmark situation here. And apparently, the world is divided right now, or shall I say, America's divided right now. Something that we thought wouldn't happen. And apparently, we found out that someone leaking the information, a month ago turns out to be the absolute truth. Roe versus Wade has been overturned. Now, I could lie and pretend and act like I ain't happy about it, but I am happy about it. Because as I stated in a previous video, that I take abortion seriously. I take it personally because I was 6 years old when the decision was made years ago. And if it had not been for my mother loving me enough and realizing that I had my own life to live and that she didn't have a right to stop that life, I wouldn't be here talking to you right now. And all of the accomplishments and things that I have made in my life would not exist had she stopped it. So, y'all can say whatever you want. The decision has been made. Now, I'm going to break it down what it truly means for Roe versus Wade to be overturned. Basically, when the decision was made in 1973, I think it had more to do with, there were several factors that I think went into it, because there were certain states where you could get an abortion, but there were a lot of other states where you couldn't, which meant that if a woman wanted to get an abortion, she had to travel to a state that would allow her to do it. Also, she had to foot the bill. She had to pay for it. If this was something that she wanted to do, she had to gather the funds to travel and the funds to actually get the procedure done. And jobs were not going to give you days off for that, because they didn't consider that an illness or anything that is worthy of you taking time off to do. So a lot of women found themselves, I guess, because they couldn't afford the abortion, couldn't afford to travel or had no way to travel to get the abortion, and would lose their job if they took off for something like that. I think a lot of women felt like, we got to push this because we deserve to have, if we want to take off on our jobs to handle this very personal matter, our job should support us in that. And I shouldn't have to be in threat of losing my job if I want to go and get an abortion. And they were basically saying, why should I have to get in my car and travel outside of my state to get something that I feel like I should be able to get right where I live? And why should I have to pay for it if I'm broke and I don't have no money? Why should I be stuck with a child that I got to raise when I already know I don't have enough to even pay for the abortion? Why should I have to stick with a child and try to raise it when I'm already broke? So we all know Roe versus Wade had a lot of factors that played into it. But the bottom line, the way I see it, is that you want us to pay for your decision. Your decision to end a child's life for whatever reason you come up with. whether it's the dad don't want to be involved, whether you just not ready to be a mom, whether something traumatic happened to you, whatever the case may be, none of us, the way I see it, is none of us were there when the incident took place. Why do I have to pay and support your decision? You know, when I was old enough to understand the true essence of Roe versus Wade, that was the conclusion that I came to. Was I was like, okay, if you want to do something that involves something that you're involved in, it ain't got nothing to do with me, it ain't got nothing to do with a lot of people. You're dealing with this situation and you decide how you want to handle it. Okay, that's fine if that's what you want to do. But why do I have to support it? Why do I have to pay for it? With the decision of Roe versus Wade going through the Supreme Court meant that the federal government carried the burden instead of individual states deciding how they wanted to handle the situation. It went strictly to the federal government, forcing all the states to adhere to some type of way for a woman to receive an abortion, not be in threat of losing her job because it was her right and her decision. You know, she should not have to travel outside of her state. She should be able to do it right where she lives. And if she can't afford it, tax dollars should be used to support it. Now, you know what I find funny? When the situation, when it was leaked, everybody got upset, but we really didn't know yet if this situation was going to happen. It was leaked, but no one really knew whether the decision was really going to flow that way. We had our suspicions, but we weren't really sure. But look what happened. Obviously, they was afraid it was going to happen, because instead of just waiting to see what the actual decision was, these liberals went buck wild. They went with protesting in front of justices' homes, and let's not forget the man who drove all the way from California to kill Brett Kavanaugh. I mean, are you serious? So you act like that just because something could happen that you don't like. But yet when Roe versus Wade was first on the table in 1973, and then the decision came down that you guys got that, you basically couldn't understand why Christians were acting the way they were acting. And all of the people who were against abortion, you couldn't understand it. And what was the main thing? Well, you're just going to have to get over it. You're just going to have to deal with it. That's the situation. Now your words are coming back to haunt you now. You're just going to have to deal with it. The decision has been made. Now, doesn't mean you can't get an abortion if you want to. It ain't took your right away. What it did was free the rest of us from having to support your decision, making us have to pay for abortions with our tax dollars when we totally don't know who you are. We don't know where you are. We weren't there when whatever happened. And your decision is your decision. Just like you say, my body, my choice. Okay, your body, your choice, your money, your decision. Don't put it on me. You see what I'm saying? Your body, your choice, your money, your support. That's how it goes. If you want an abortion, there are places where you can get it. You're just going to have to foot the bill yourself and do it yourself. Now, you want to be woman? I am woman, hear me roar? Okay. Roar right on by yourself to go get it done. Nobody's stopping you. But to try to make everybody else, deal with it, that's not right. That's not right. And jobs shouldn't have to be, businesses shouldn't have to be put in a position where they have to offer insurance for a woman who wants to get an abortion. That's her decision. The company had nothing to do with that. Why should the company have to come off of money for insurance for a woman who wants to get an abortion? That is crazy. That's crazy. But as I stated before, when the decision came down in 1973, a lot of people were not happy about it. And basically, the people who were in support of abortion basically just told us to get over it. Get over it, deal with it. I remember my mother. She was against abortion. She spoke out against it. And my mother was not an activist. She was not the person who got out in the community with a bullhorn and was screaming and hollering at people about what's right and what's wrong. But if the subject ever came up and anyone asked her opinion about it, she was very honest about how she felt about abortion. And so she made it clear that they were basically told to just deal with it. That times were changing and things can't stay the same way all the time. And they ran that rhetoric. And for over 40 some odd years, you guys have been able to get your abortions. You've been able to have insurance to cover it. You've been able to get it right within your state. Now, of course, there were, gestation periods and trimesters and stuff became an issue. See, it wasn't enough that you could get an abortion. See, that's the problem with letting something be given to someone. It's never enough. It wasn't enough that you had the right to get an abortion, but now you wanted to kill it even sooner. It was like they had a limit on how long you had to be pregnant before you could kill the baby. And now they were saying, if you carried a baby to full term, you could kill it. They were trying to get laws passed on that before this situation happened. So my thing is, when is it enough? When are you going to just say, okay, that's it. We got what we wanted. Look, you had 40 years to have it your way. I mean, but the bottom line is the federal government already has enough on its plate. It don't need to be carrying this weight. Y'all throwing LGBTQ stuff in there. Y'all throwing transgender stuff in there. Y'all throwing all kinds of stuff. Gas prices, food prices, everything is weighing on the government now. You could accept one situation that didn't go the way you wanted to and just say, well, we lost this one. But no, maturity would be too much like right. Now, I have always been in support of, the babies. I've always been in support of a woman who chooses to have her baby. I have never supported abortion, but I'm not the type that's going to get out there. Like I said, I have activist views, but I'm not going to get out there and yell and scream at people and threaten people. People close their ears to people yelling and screaming and throwing threats. I ain't got to throw no threats at you. God said what he said, thou shalt not kill. He said, he didn't say thou shalt not kill if it's, if it's inconvenient, or if it's not inconvenient, then you can't kill. He didn't say thou shalt not kill, unless you're in a bad situation. Thou shalt not kill unless it just bothers you in some way, or it's an inconvenience, or it's an imposition. God never said, he said, thou shalt not kill. And that means including, you ain't supposed to kill nobody else, and you ain't supposed to kill yourself, because you didn't give life to yourself, and you certainly didn't give it to anybody else. Now, for those women who have children, who are probably wanting to smack me in the face right about now, all I can say is, You and I both know that there's something bigger than you when you get pregnant. Because you can have sex till the cows come home and nothing happens. So when you finally can get pregnant, that was something that had absolutely nothing to do with you or whoever you was having sex with. Didn't have nothing to do with it because you had been doing it and nothing happened. So you got to think about it. If you could get pregnant every time you had sex, this world would be totally, we could not live on this earth. It would be overly crowded with people all over the earth. Because if every time you had a sexual encounter, you got pregnant, and let's say we had laws that said you could not kill a baby at all, period, no abortion, nothing. And I mean, every state said, no, you can't do it. And then you knew that if I have sex, I'm going to get pregnant. I bet a lot of people would be practicing abstinence just because they know that if I do this, I'm going to get pregnant and I can't get away from it. But the fact that you can have sex over and over and over again, and then just one day, wham, you're pregnant. That's something bigger than you. And that something is God himself. God knows how to populate this earth. He don't need nobody to tell him how to populate this earth. He knows when to put life on this earth and when not to. That's why you can have sex and sometimes ain't nothing happening and sometimes something is. God knows what he's doing. But he also ain't going to interfere with your freedom of choice. So if you decide you want to kill it, after he already said you ain't supposed to do that, if you can live with the consequence of your decision, God ain't stopping you. See, everybody wants to get mad at God about Roe versus Wade being overturned. No, these are people who don't agree that influenced judges to say, well, maybe we shouldn't carry this burden anymore. We've been carrying it for 40 years and it ain't done nothing but caused us a bunch of trouble because everybody is fighting. See, if y'all could have had your abortions and we try to work something out, if you try to get along with the people who didn't agree with you, instead of everybody arguing and fighting, I think that's what the government just said, you know what, we've been carrying this for too long. Let's just put it back where it should go. The individual states, let them decide how they want to deal with it. If a state wants to allow abortions, fine. And that means if people want to, if they live in a state where it's not allowed, if they want to travel to another state to get it done, let them go ahead. At the end of the day, it is what it is. The decision has been made. So you just have to live with it. Now, do I believe it's going to stay that way? No. Because I know how people act when they don't get their way. They act like big babies. They throw temper tantrums. Just because I even seen a picture after the decision was made public. They showed a lady carrying a sign in front of the White House that said, impeach the Supreme Court. Really? Now, had conservative Christians said that back in 1973, y'all would have had a hissy fit. Why don't they just get over it? They lost the battle. I can hear that was probably what was said. Those very words were probably said in 1973. And that it didn't matter how upset people who didn't support abortion got. Everyone that supported abortion was saying, get over it. Accept it. And let's face it, for 40 years, that's exactly what people who don't support abortion did. They eventually had no choice but to accept it. If the government made it an issue of where they said, well, we're going to carry this burden, Unless we was going to denounce our citizenship and move somewhere else, what was we going to do? You had no choice but to accept it. And so I hate to say it, but I mean, on some level, that's the same thing y'all going to have to do. You just going to have to live with it. You know that statement, back in the 70s, there was a statement that I remember when I used to watch Good Times, Good Times with Esther Roll and John Amos. There was a statement that they used to say all the time in different episodes, and it applies right now. You got to give a little to get a little. If you always taking, but you can't never give, something wrong there. Now, we didn't had Roe versus Wade active for over 40 years. Give a little. I mean, you can still get an abortion. I ain't happy about that you can still get one, but the bottom line is, if you feel it's your right and you feel that no one can tell you, well, then go to a state that allows abortions and go and get it done. But don't ask me to pay for it. Don't ask me to agree with it. Look, when I was born into this world, you weren't there. None of y'all was there. And when I was born, there was a brain in here that God gave me. I learned how to think for myself. Therefore, I don't need somebody trying to control how I feel about something. And to me, when you make something law that wasn't already on the books and you adding it on there, and that's how Roe versus Wade was. That was no law until 1973. Then it became law. But before then, it wasn't. So if you want to make it a law, I can't stop you. But don't ask me to agree with it and support it. I ain't going to do that. And even though our federal government took our money and did what they wanted to do with it, which is what they've been doing since they took the income taxes, from the birth of the income tax, and don't even get me started on that issue. We couldn't stop them from taking our tax dollars and doing what they felt with it. But how I individually feel about it, you can't take that from me. And you can't bend and twist me and make me do what you want to do. Now, another situation that came up that a lot of people are heated about, apparently the Supreme Court did something else. And I guess this is why this is leading to impeachment that everyone's screaming about, because they also ruled about the gun law. Because I guess New York, which seems to be, it's usually either New York, Chicago, or California that's usually the catalyst for a lot of the stuff that goes on. New York apparently had passed some law about, well, they wanted a law passed, and that's what got turned down, was they wanted this law passed saying the conceal and carry, that you could have a gun at home, but that you couldn't carry it on you. And that if you wanted to carry a gun on you, you had to apply through the federal government, not through your local police, but through the federal government. You had to apply to explain why you felt you needed to have your gun with you. Now, with all the shootings that have been going on, mass shootings in grocery stores, in schools, subways, and all of that, you gotta ask, you gotta explain to someone why you need a gun. Honestly, more than half the situations that happen, the mass shootings and things like that, if people all over were to lose their right to carry a gun, imagine how these criminals would really go on a killing spree, and we all would be vulnerable. You can't come to a gunfight with a slingshot. Unless you David, and you got God on your side to fight Goliath, you can't come to no fight with a slingshot and they bringing a gun. Let's just be honest. The situation, and see, I understand people getting emotional about it because this decision came right after the Uvalde shooting, right after the Buffalo shooting in the store, and all these different mass shootings that we've had. I understand that. I get that everyone wants to think, well, if we get the guns under control, we won't have as many situations like this. But you guys, here's where the gotcha is. Even if you take every gun away from gun owners, how are you going to get them away from the criminals? See, to me, you need to be just as diligent. If you're going to make it hard for an honest, tax-paying, hard-working American to have a gun, if you're going to basically say you can't have a gun because we don't know what you're going to do with it, okay, how are you going to make sure that the criminal don't get one? I mean, are they going to go through the same process? I mean, are you going to have, police officers pulling cars over one by one, saying, show me if you got guns? Are you going to have, federal raids where you actually go into homes and apartment complexes and condos and you literally search people's houses? There are countries that do that they do have monthly and weekly raids of the citizens. Everyday citizens know that at any time their government can enter their home and search it for what they think is illegal. And that can be guns, that can be certain types of foods, certain type of products and property, just depending on what that country says you shouldn't have. They can come up with a reason to come into your home. There are other countries that actually do that, but America has always been a place where you ain't got to worry about that. We ain't got to worry about somebody coming into our house doing a raid unless we into something illegal. And right now, carrying a gun ain't illegal. If you paid for it and you went through the background check, that gun is yours, and you ain't got to worry about people coming in raiding your place to see if you have a gun. But evidently, New York wanted to try to head in that direction by trying to say you can't carry your gun on you unless you can prove to us why you need to. Well, the Supreme Court shot that down. Said you can't do that. You cannot take away people's right to defend themselves. Now, I'm going to tell you, I have never owned a gun. And even with all of the craziness that's going on, I've never felt the need to have one. But I'm not going to tell another person that they can't have a gun or that they shouldn't have a gun. You have a right to defend yourself. I have knives in my apartment. I sleep with one under my bed. See, I'm the type of person, if you come and try to get at me, see, if you break into my place, it's personal at that point. A gun is kind of impersonal, in my opinion. A gun, I can be 50 feet away from people and just start shooting. That's a cowardly way to do something. You're not a bold person to stand 50 feet away and just no. If I really want to get at somebody, trust me, there's a way I can do it. And like I said, anybody breaking my place with me in here, I got a knife with your name on it waiting for you. And it's going to be personal at that point because you stepped into my personal space. So I'm going to get you in your personal space. So it's not the weapon. It's the intent of the person behind the weapon. Guns don't just climb out of holsters and put the bullets inside themselves and say, who am I going to kill today? Guns sit and wait to be used. And if no one ever picks them up, no one ever loads them, and no one ever aims them, they're totally harmless. It's the intent of the person behind it. So you can make all the laws you want to stop someone owning a gun, but you can't stop the hatred behind the gun. When people hate and they want to do harm, they don't have to have a gun to do it. There's people get beat with baseball bats, stabbed, strangled. There's so many ways that people can unleash their hatred and their evil on another person. A gun is just one of the ways that they can do it, but there's so many other ways. So why are we focusing on one way? Why? Because the victim count is higher? Is that what it is? The fact that a gun can kill more people in one moment than a stabbing or a strangling. Maybe that's what it is, that the body count is higher. But see, to me, I ain't worried about body count. The fact that a life is being taken by someone who does not have the right to do so, I'm upset whether it's mass deaths or one. Because when somebody takes somebody else's life, that should not be tolerated, period. And my thing is, if you're going to take away an honest citizen who owns a gun legally, and you want to take that away from them because you don't know what they're going to do with it, but yet you can let all these criminals running around here who can get guns right off the street. They ain't got to go through no background check. There's guns on the street that you can buy right now. Not to mention, you can buy a gun from somebody else. You ain't even got to go to a gun show nowadays. If you got a friend who collects legal guns, you can just go to them and say, hey, I'll buy one from you. And you just went around the system. You just went around it. The Supreme Court ruled that you can't take the right away of a human being to protect themselves. So now everybody who's trying to use the school shooting, and I understand they upset. I get it. Whenever there's lives lost, especially little kids, I understand people's emotions. But honestly, if those teachers had guns, that situation never would have went down in Uvalde. The situation never would have went down in Sandy Hook. The situation never would have went down in Columbine. If teachers were able to conceal and carry within the building, none of those situations would have happened. You would have been able to get that situation under control very quick. But why do you think those people chose those areas? Why do you think they did that? Because they knew that most of the people involved were unarmed. They knew that there were no guns in the school. Even the security officers can't carry guns. These people know this. They know it. That's why they picked it. Notice, you never hear about somebody doing a mass shooting on a military base. Notice, you'll never hear about that. The only time I've ever heard of a shooting happening on a military base was by a military soldier. And the only reason it happened, why? Because he worked on the base. He knows how the base operates. He knows where the weapons are. He knows how to maneuver and get around because he's on that base. He knows exactly how much ammunition is there. And he knows who's strapped and who ain't. So he knows how to navigate. But in a school, you pretty much know that ain't nobody got no weapon in there. There's little kids in there. Ain't nobody got no gun in there. You go to the grocery store, you may have 1 or 2 people, maybe 3 or 4, that are concealing and carrying. But when they go in the store and they come out, they leave, the next one going in after them may not have anything. The chances are that most of the people going inside are not concealing and carrying. Most of the people that are shopping at the store are women and children. You see what I'm saying? These criminals, if we're going to take away the guns from the hardworking citizens, you need to make sure that you're doing the same with the criminals. If you ain't giving both the same discipline, then you need to just find something else. Find something else that'll work. Otherwise, you wasting your time because you're just going to disarm the good guy and just really beef up the arms for the bad guy. A lot of things going on, y'all. It's really sad. I didn't make this video to be mean. I didn't make it to incite anger. I made it to prove a point that in life, a mature adult can accept that sometimes decisions are going to be made that we don't agree with, that we don't like. But just because we don't agree with it doesn't mean we have a right to threaten someone with bodily harm. Sometimes we have to just accept the fact that a decision was made that we didn't like, and we just have to live with it. If we can come back to a negotiation table and try to work something out, fine. But if there's no negotiation, if you just don't want to negotiate, you just want it your way, then you just have to live with the fact that, okay, this decision didn't go the way we planned. We have to live with it. Christians had to do it time and time again. We've had to live with it. So if you've got to live with something, be the mature one, like you asked us to do all the time. When you asking Christians to be mature and just deal with it and just live with it. Okay, now we're saying that right back. Live with it, deal with it. If everybody just respected the fact that everything ain't going to go your way. Christians, we've learned that. It hurts, but we've learned it. Everything ain't going to go our way. Sometimes things are going to be decided that we sitting there going, I can't believe this happened. But you certainly can't think that it's going to always go your way too. So you got to give a little to get a little. All right, y'all. I'm going to end it here. I hope that the American people can come to a consensus to where we can agree to disagree if at the end of it, we just can't see eye to eye. Let's just agree to disagree. You go back to your corner. We go back to ours. Boom. Fight is over. Decision's been made. But if we can't get to that point, I don't want to know what it's going to turn out to be like. So I pray that God bring us together as a people. I really, really do. I thank y'all for hanging out with me. And until the next episode, stay strong in the Lord. I pray those that don't know the Lord, that one day he reveal himself to you. He loves you no matter what, even when you don't believe in him, even if you don't like him, even if you hate him. He loves you. That'll never change. All right, y'all. Till the next episode. See ya.
If you like my vibe, be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Till the next time, see ya.